Once we bottom short term or longer term near 74,000 or beyond that, we can start drawing in some channels. I'm speculating looking at some of these different trend lines right now, but again, so far we keep going lower, so we'll be watching that. Again, beautiful topping signal at the top. No bottoming signal here. Had some counter trend rallies for bottoming signal, short-term bottoming signals. Bitcoin's down 5.60% as I'm making the video with a few more hours in the trading session. Again, my signals remain bearish. Got some short-term signals for bottoming signals. Most of them are getting canceled out with today's push down. Again, they need to be finalized and then they need to be confirmed, which we have not seen happen. Still have some here, but we're still pushing down. Others have been canceled out. Get a rebound. I'll be watching to see if we get a bottoming tail surrounding the lower band. We got a couple of them the prior 2 days. They were unconfirmed hammer candlesticks. We'll be watching to see what becomes of this. Again, we're still getting this divergence in the 4-hour time frame, but it's creating multiple points of divergence, as you can see here from this low right here, and then we've had these lows that it's just creating this multiple point divergence. Eventually, that's going to give us some type of bounce, but it keeps dipping lower and lower. We're at the the mid 90 levels and then the low 90 levels, and now we're here, at 86,000. Again, I'm continuing to watch this divergence. Now, I've these divergences to mark turning points. I use this to call the top and some of these counter trend rallies. And if we go back further, the top in July and August and the April bottom, and some of these divergences have been very, very helpful with the turning points with Bitcoin. This one is forming a multiple point divergence. So again, multiple point divergences do produce reversals, but it's still under construction. And you can see it here on the MACD. So again, we'll probably see some type of recovery. We are in crash wave 3. It's only going to be a subwave in crash wave 3. This is a 5-leg push down that we somehow a larger counter trend wave for wave 2. Just now starting to look less and less likely. Again, signals are suggesting we're moving into a bear market here, that we've started a bear market, likely headed to 63 to 74,000, or maybe a little bit lower than a 50% decline of 63,000. Eventually, the 100 period is going to cross down below Bitcoin's average price as it did over here. When that happened, you had already begun the recovery. So again, and that ended up forming the bear flag going into the 200, going into Bitcoin's average price. Actually, the 50-week moving average, we're taking out this trend line in the weekly time frame from the 2022 low. We're taking out the trend line from 2015 right now. We may try to recover before the week ends on both of them. As I've said, we closed last week below the 50-week moving average. If you get an open and a close below the 50-week moving average like we did over here, you close below it, you got an open and close below it, confirming a bear market. You're going to confirm. If we close below the 50-week moving average, open and a close below the 50-week moving average, you're going to confirm it. Move back up on here. We got it back above the 200 period, but you got a lower high. So again, do we confirm it? Now, if we only get some kind of short-term bounce with the 4-hour chart, again, after we confirmed right here, you still went lower. As I've said, you still took out that low. You still went lower before you got the bigger bounce. I keep saying we could just get a bounce that is a subwave for crash wave 3. Remain bearish. Short positions are doing great. I just keep saying at some point, it'll be this week, we're going to get some type of bounce. I still remain long-term bearish, and we're going lower. I hope you hear what I'm saying. We do have a 50-50 sell signal here in the weekly time frame from last week. Had some signals show up that Bitcoin's trying to put in a short-term bottom. Other ones have got canceled out. We had a couple of signals here, one earlier in the week. Tried to get one with this session. I posted that chart. It went away. And the final print will not be until the close. The signal has to get a follow through for it to play out. And warned the bottom was trying to form, but failed to confirm. So the signal got canceled out. So again, I'll be watching to see if the signal forms. And I told you I thought we'd bottom on Tuesday or Wednesday. I told you this week I think we get some kind of short-term bottom. Short-term. I hope you hear what I'm saying. Short-term bottom for some kind of bounce. It's looking more and more like we're in crash wave 3, and so it'll probably just be a smaller bounce if we are in fact still following that Wyckoff model. Keep talking about. Takes us down to 74,000, by the way. Signal here canceled out, other signals canceled out. I'll be watching for clues. Do we get some kind of rebound? But like I keep saying, we're going much lower, and any rally back up is nothing more than a counter trend, whether a bigger one or a smaller one. But it is looking more and more like we're in that crash wave 3. No signal here yet at all. And again, if the signals do show up, I think it's just going to be a counter trend. Had a signal here. I posted this chart on Charting Prodigy on X. Got canceled out. Again, the final print won't be till the end of the session. Now, it may come back if we attempt a recovery. Again, Bitcoin's been down over 5.5% here. We've gotten bottoming tails the prior 2 days. If we get another one, again, the signal might show back up. But right now, at our lows, if we close down at the lows, it's going to get canceled out, at least for now. Beautiful topping signal. Again, my signals, which are correct, remain bearish. Just because I'm saying that we're going to get some kind of short-term bottom and some kind of rebound based on the divergence in the 4-hour time frame doesn't mean I think I'm turning bullish and yeah, we're going to go make new highs and we're going to 200,000. That's not what I'm saying. I do still think you're going to see some kind of attempted recovery. It's looking more and more like we're in crash wave 3. Could just give us a bounce for a subwave of crash wave 3, as I've talked about. The risk for Bitcoin going lower right now is that the market begins to play catch up. NVIDIA begins to play catch up. Markets following NVIDIA. These head and shoulder patterns, which Bitcoin already formed. Eventually, Bitcoin gets a much bigger drop as the market's playing catch up. I'm still saying we're going down 40 or 50% in my opinion. And let me just say this. Again, Bitcoin got this head and shoulders. We had a triple top. A July peak, August peak, and October peak. And in the October peak, had this head and shoulders pattern in that third top. And that's what Bitcoin did for this big crash. Now we're seeing it on NVIDIA, the head and shoulders setting up. We're seeing it set up, and you can go watch my video later today, Ron Walker channel, and you'll see these charts. Time to show them to you now. We're now setting up these head and shoulder patterns, breaking the trend line from the April low and back testing. That's what we've now seen with NASDAQ and S&P. Doing what Bitcoin did. Up and hit resistance like Bitcoin did in the weekly time frame. So they're following Bitcoin, and Bitcoin broke down from this head and shoulders, and then it back tested it, and now we're getting this bigger drop, likely in crash wave 3. You have the 10 and the 20, the red and the blue line, dropping below the 200 period, the 50 dropping below the 200 period, and they're all pointing down. So again, at some point you're going to get a rally back up, but you may just get a subwave and then end up going down to 74,000 or beyond before you go back up to this 200 period moving average. The RSI is becoming very oversold as we're getting that bullish divergence in the 4-hour time frame. See if that divergence gives us some type of bounce. We've now taken out this level of support right here at 98,000, which again I talked about over and over again. That's now resistance here. We came down to just above it, tried to bounce. I got rejection at the 20 period moving average, and we've now taken that out. So again, these moving averages, Bitcoin's average price, the 50, the 200, all these levels are resistance. And again, it's looking like we are crash wave 3. It's looking more and more like that, but we're becoming oversold. So I expect some kind of bounce, but again, it will likely be some type of subwave in this crash wave 3. This whole thing I'm labeling as crash wave, primary wave 3, because I think that, again, 1 and 2 are here. So again, you could get these smaller subwaves, maybe minor wave 4 here. If we finish intermediate wave 3, the third of the third, then you could get intermediate wave 4 and then 5. But I think that's eventually taking you down to 74,000. That's a 41% drop. And if we do have the crash wave 3, you get a 4. Eventually, you can take out this level and go down 50 or plus percent, which is what I've been predicting. At some point along the way here, we're going to get these bounces. They're only going to be counter trends, and that's the point I'm trying to make. Like I said, we're going to get some kind of counter trend bounce with the divergence in the 4-hour time frame. I told you I thought that could possibly be with the bottom on Monday or Tuesday and Wednesday. Sorry, I was wrong about that, but I still think you're going to get the bounce. I'm not predicting a major bottom for Bitcoin, that it's going to go make new highs and continue the advance, and the bull market is going to resume. That's not what I'm predicting. Predicting you're going to drop 40 or 50%, get a massive rally from there. After dropping down 40 or 50%, get a massive rally back up for a right shoulder, after you drop 40 or 50+%. That's what I'm predicting. I'm just saying a short-term bounce for a counter trend is becoming more and more likely, but it's likely we are in crash wave 3. Please support the channel with the link directly below. If you like the charts, you like the indicators, let me know that by supporting the channels. Again, since I've called the top, we've now dropped 32%. Yes, we're going to have some bounces along the way. There's more downside. If we get this massive drop, again, I might consider a multiple month long position down here if we get this 40 or 50% drop here for a potential right shoulder, because I think that's going to be Bitcoin's going to bottom by January, and we're going to get this massive rally. But I'll have to look at that later, as I think we will drop into January. That's something I'm thinking about. Now, hey, short positions are playing out great. Talked about those back at the top. I thought we topped the day of the top on October 6th, 2025. So again, I've been following along. I've been playing these signals. Again, I've done really well. So if you find that information useful as I do, please consider supporting the channel today. Follow the link below to take you to a secured site, and you can donate any amount you want. Get a recurring donation. But if you could take a moment to partner with me and do that, I thank you. Most channels have sponsors. I choose not to do that. So thank you for your consideration for that. Now we got a signal right here, but we're still going lower. I got a couple of signals. Most of them got canceled out. This one's still here. We'll see if we get another one. Sometimes you get these back-to-back signals, just showing short-term turning points of potentially where we might get a bounce, a sell-off. I had a signal here 3 sessions ago on Tuesday. So far it's not getting canceled out. It still may. Sometimes you get multiple point signals like what we had over here, called the bottom beautifully. This signal can still get canceled out, but so far it's hanging in there, saying, hey, we might see a bottom, a short-term bottom right around here. Like I said, if we do, it'll probably just be nothing more than a counter trend, whether feeble, crash wave 3, or something bigger. Looking more and more like we're in crash wave 3, though. Had some bottoming signals. Some are still here, like this one. Hey, we could be developing a bottom soon. This still may get canceled out. Other bottoming signals went away. See a bunch of bottoming signals form if we're going to get some kind of bounce. As I keep saying, we're headed down towards 74,000. Nobody seems to believe me, but that's where we're headed. We're likely forming a massive head and shoulders pattern. I would have loved to post a video a little bit earlier today, but I couldn't. As you know, I've just had surgery, and I had a follow-up appointment with the surgeon. So better late than never, but I wanted to get a video, a Bitcoin video out to you. Now, again, I told you I thought Bitcoin would likely put in some kind of short-term bottom this week. Does that mean I think Bitcoin's bottoming out and it's going to go make new highs? No. Does that mean that we're bottoming and the sell-off is done? No. I believe we're going much lower. I think you're going to get a 40 to 50% drop. Right now we're down to 86,000 at the lows today. Currently we've dropped about 5.5%. Right now we're down just over 5%. A couple of bottoming tails on Tuesday and Wednesday. They did not get confirmed. Yes, I still think we're going to see some kind of bottom this week. I told you, and again, I have the guts to tell you exactly what I think. Very few people do that. Most people predict things after they happen. Hey, oh, top was so obvious, here, 32% later, or the April bottom. Oh, the bottom was so obvious. That was a bottom, and predict things after they already happen. I don't. I tell you what I think. Again, I had some bottoming signals over the last couple of days. They keep getting canceled out. I told you, again, in order to have them, you got to get it finalized by the close of the session, and then a confirmation of that with the follow through up. We're getting multiple point divergences on the 4-hour chart. So I do think you're going to get some kind of bottom, but as I keep saying, I think it's going to be a bounce. Whether it can be a bigger bounce like this scenario, or whether we're in the crash wave 3, which I think is becoming more and more likely, a more feeble bounce, and then we go to lower levels, remains to be seen. But again, I keep saying it. I've been saying it now for 7 weeks. We're going to go down 40 or 50%. If we've topped, when I called the day of the top at 126,000, predicted would crash, and here it is. It's crashing. We can go down to this 100,000 area. Told you we can come down to this 100,000 area to 98,000, bounce there or risk taking it out. And we keep breaking key levels of support. You know, first we lost this area right here, this 112,000, 112. We lost 107 and 108,000 area. They say, oh, Bitcoin's the greatest performing asset. This year, right now in 2025, it's the worst performing asset. Bitcoin's down for the year. Don't get me wrong, I love Bitcoin. But again, it's topped, I think it's moved into a bear market. And again, over here, January, the start of the year over here, we peaked on January 20th, that first peak before the big sell. Again, we're down. We're down about 32%. If I just zoom out here for a minute, you can see, again, the previous correction was 32%. That's rounding up 32% from the high to the low. That's from the January high down to the April low. Prior correction was, let me just adjust this, it moved on me, it was 33%. So 33%, right around 32%. Here we are, almost 32%. Probably should see some kind of rebound. Again, I think these were corrections in the larger. Notice we found support at Bitcoin's average price each time. We found support at the 50-week moving average. We've taken out the 50-week. We've taken out Bitcoin's average price. We will rally to these levels, the 200 period moving average, Bitcoin's average price, the 50 period moving average, and 100 period moving average, and these levels will become resistance. I told you at the beginning of the week, again, I thought we'd probably bottom this week, and I thought it'd be Tuesday or Wednesday. We're still going to new lows. So I was completely wrong about a bottom on Tuesday or Wednesday. Again, I have the guts to tell you what I think. I thought we'd bottom this week. And again, I think it's going to be a bounce. Now, if we get something bigger, if we have 5-leg push lower here, then this is still possible. It's more likely, though, that we're in crash wave 3, as I've talked about. You could have a scenario where you have a wave 1 down and then get a wave 2, primary wave 2, if we try to bottom out here and get something bigger. I don't know that we're going to do that. No, even though I'm telling you, and right now we're down about 5.5%. Again, I think you're probably going to see some kind of bounce. I remain bearish and think that we're going to drop 40 to 50%. I think we're going back to test 74,000. Here we are at 86,000, about to take that out if we keep going lower. So again, everything is played out nicely. I'm just saying you could get this bigger bounce if we get a wave 2 towards a Fibonacci retracement or a subwave for crash wave 3. And that's all I'm saying. I remain bearish. The Bitcoin top is in. I think any bounce is a opportunity for the bears, really a gift to the bears, an opportunity to the bulls to close long positions. But as I keep saying, I doubt retail investors will take it, or retail traders go up higher if we do get a bigger rally, and they'll leave the bottom is in. And here we go, we're on our way to 200,000, before the year ends. And again, why I keep saying that was a bunch of nonsense. Again, we've hit major resistance, but all these people calling for 200,000 by the 250,000 by the end of the year, and the complete opposite happens. And they keep telling us how bullish this nearly 32% sell-off is. I keep saying, and I'll repeat it, it's not over. You're going to get some kind of bounce, a big one, or whether a subwave of crash wave 3, and then you're going to go down further. At that multiple point bullish divergence in the 4-hour time frame, we'll likely see some type of attempted recovery. It's only going to be a counter trend. Now we got that 9 count yesterday, and we got another bottoming tail. We'll see if we get another one today or not. Again, the bottoming tail hammer candlesticks that we've had the previous 2 days on Tuesday and Wednesday, they're meaningless unless they get confirmation. I have confirmation, but do we get another bottoming tail, or today, tomorrow, or before the weekends, do we get some kind of rebound back up? Because we confirm a bear market in the weekly time frame immediately. Last week's close below the 50 period, we get an open and a close follow through this week, and then we can't get back above the 50-week moving average in the weekly time frame. We've had the death cross. 200 period is now resistance. And I told you when we got the death cross, you may still try to keep going, because that's what we did the last time when we got the death cross in early 2022. Kept going. I talked about that possibility. I think you're going to get some kind of bounce. As I keep saying, I don't think it is going to take Bitcoin to new highs. I think a bounce is a bounce. Whether bigger or smaller, I can't tell you that. I don't know the future. We'll be watching to see if we get some type of attempted rebound back towards Bitcoin's average price, back towards the 50 and the 200 as they get this death cross. But let me repeat again, I'm bearish. Glad Bitcoin's dropping further because, again, I remain short. And I think it's eventually going to, 63,000, 60 to 63,000 to 74,000 or so, a 40 to 50% drop. Of just saying, hey, I think some kind of bounce. Now, again, call the day of the April bottom, call the day of the October 6th peak, called some of these other turning points spot on. Predicted these rallies and this reversal here off of the 50-period moving average, the bounce off the 200, made a lot of these great calls. I'm at a disadvantage in that, again, I predict things before they happen, so I'm not always going to be right. I'm not infallible. And most people predict things after they already happen. Now, the Moon Boys, they've been predicting a bottom. Oh, it's a bottom, lower. It's a bottom, lower. It's a bottom, lower. And I've been telling you, and I've been calling some of these as short-term bottoms, telling you we're going to get a bounce. Even if we get a short-term bottom and get the bounce that I think we'll probably get this week, again, we're going lower. I hope you get that message. We are going lower. It's becoming more and more likely we're in crash wave 3. The 9 count, before I leave this chart, sometimes you get the 9 count and that marks a bottom. The 8 or 9 bar marks a bottom. Other times you go a little bit lower for a few days and then you get a recovery. Marks the bottom. Now, this marked a top right here, right after the day of the peak, over here, the day before, over here, right after the bottom. Done a pretty good job of marking turning points. Again, sometimes these tops with a 13 and 9. Here we got a 9. It was a countertrend back to the 50-period moving average, just a short-term bounce. The 13, we got it. We went a little bit lower, and then you bottom. But again, you tend to see these counts show up when there is price exhaustion, and that's what we're getting right now. But it's very likely that we're in crash wave 3. This is a daily time frame. I'm looking at some of these intraday charts. If we divide the day into 4, a 6-hour chart, we're about to get a 13 count, a 913. Intraday, if we look at the 4-hour chart, you've already got a 913 and you're going a little bit lower. Again, I still think the divergences in the 4-hour time frame are likely to play out, get some kind of rebound. How big that rebound is, I have no idea. Again, I posted the Wyckoff distribution model right after we peaked, and we've been following this thing pretty much spot on, suggesting we're going to get some kind of bounce here. Now, if we continue to follow the Wyckoff distribution model, we'll get a bounce and likely come down to 74,000, which was the April low. That was the day that I called the bottom. With my indicators, I got a bunch of signals flashing. I thought we might get a short-term bottom this week, and I told you it might be Monday or Tuesday, but I don't think it's a major bottom like April. We are going to go make new highs. Over here, I think we got a top, and I think you're going to either get a bigger recovery if this is our first leg down, or if, again, it's becoming more and more likely we're in crash wave 3, as I keep saying, then you get some kind of bounce and continue down towards the 74,000, and eventually that's a 41% drop lower. As we keep going, like we've done in the past, and in the bear markets, when you kick them off, you drop 40 or 50%. Last bear market, we kicked it up by dropping 52%. That would take Bitcoin down to 60,000, as I keep saying. So the risk is that we get some kind of bounce and then keep going. We'll see. Do we get another bottoming tail like we did the previous 2 days? Do we get this kind of bounce? And if so, how big it is? But the risk is we continue to follow this Wyckoff distribution model. Again, we had the peak over here in July, the peak in August. You went slightly above those levels and you slammed into major resistance. I talked about this back at the top. We slammed into major resistance. That's why I called top on October 6th, 2025. Topping signals the 6th, 7th, and 8th. And I told you, I think that we've topped. I think the 4-year cycle has ended. Telling you, if we continue to follow that Wyckoff model, we're going to get some kind of bounce. There's just going to be a subwave in this crash wave 3. And this is the Elliot wave count that, again, I keep talking about that could take us down to 74,000 or beyond. Here we are at 86,000. We'll see if we try to recover like we did the prior 2 days, and we got the bounce, the bottoming tail. And this channel here, again, Until we get a bottom, it could change. So again, I'm just messing around with it a little bit. But again, we are in a downtrend, as you can clearly see. Either we're wrapping up, crash wave 3 here, or this intermediate wave 3 is going to complete here, and we get an intermediate wave 4 and then a 5 and come down to 74,000, and that's primary wave 3, crash, the whole thing being crash wave 3, primary wave 3. Then we get a 4, and then we go down, and we go down to 50% lower, and you go down to here to 60 or 63,000, and you get crash wave 5. And a late wave of speculation, it's possible we could be finishing intermediate wave 3 to get intermediate wave 4, but it's also possible that, again, different ways to count it, that this could be the minor wave 3. You only get a bounce back up for minor wave 4, and then you come down further, you finish intermediate wave 3, and then you get the intermediate wave 4, and then 5, and so forth. Again, Elliott wave is not the Nostradamus indicator. Let's see the future. It's just trying to determine price direction by looking at corrective and impulsive moves and by the process of elimination. I do not trade Elliott wave. My signal said we were topping up at the top, and I believe my signals, and I've been telling you for 7 weeks now, Bitcoin is topped. Eventually, we're going down to 74,000 and probably beyond it, 40 to 50% drop. I say Bitcoin's going to get a short-term bottom. That doesn't mean, oh, it's bottoming. Okay, here we go. We're going up to 200,000 by the end of the year. I mean, and I ask you, all the people that told us that we are going to be at 200,000, when I told you we were topping, all the people who told us we had a breakout as a fake out, and all the people that keep telling us Bitcoin's going to be at 200 and 250,000 by the end of the year, and here we've dropped, 32% or so. I was correct about that. I'm telling you, I think we're going to get some kind of bounce, some kind of short-term bottom this week because of the divergences on the 4-hour chart, but obviously they're not done yet because we're still dropping to new lows. We'll see how we close. We'll see what happens. But again, is this the minor wave 3? We get 4, and then we get 5, and then we see this choppiness and still end up dropping down to 74,000, eventually beyond it. And then I think you're going to get a massive run-up by January. I think the Fed will panic. And again, we had this rally on NVIDIA, and NVIDIA is reversing. And I talked about my stock video yesterday. Again, the earnings are often associated with tops. Whether that'll be the case here, we'll be watching closely. But you got a possible head and shoulders on the NASDAQ and NVIDIA. And again, could the market begin to play catch-up with Bitcoin? I think so. Lose sight of the big picture. I think we're going down here. I think we're going down 40 or 50%. So again, currently I'm labeling this as a primary 1, a primary 2 being done, and then having our first intermediate wave 1 and 2 done. Now an intermediate wave 3, and maybe these minor waves bring intermediate wave to a conclusion, or maybe you get a bounce and it's not done and you get one more drop. We'll see how it unfolds. In Elliott wave is speculation. If you know the future, you know so much more than I do. Trader, I make amazing calls. I have really good indicators. Right now, the bottoming signals are not yet being confirmed. They keep showing up, and then they go away. They have to be confirmed by the end of the session, and then be able to remain there and produce a reversal. And so far, that's not been the case. I keep posting this chart, keep showing you in every single video, this chart right here. This is what I think is happening. You're going down to 74,000. That's 41% lower. I think you'll eventually take it out by January, and I think you'll be down 40, 50%. If you go 50% lower, you're down 63,000. Again, I posted this chart shortly after we had peaked, broke the trend line. We back tested it with the bear flag. And again, people, I post it. Every time I post, I get people just laughing at me and mocking me and saying what a dope I am. And yet it's playing out. Massive head and shoulders. I think you're going to eventually crash down to 74,000 or 63 or 60,000, and then I think you're going to get this massive run up for the right shoulder, and I think that that's when the Fed is going to do the jumbo cuts. I think that will be by January. I think by January the Fed is going to begin to have an emergency meeting. They're going to do jumbo cuts, and the herd believes that's bullish, so that we're going to get this massive rally with it, but only to get a counter trend and probably come back up above the levels where we're at now, depending on, and maybe it's going to be a lopsided pattern if we do go lower, but I'm looking for a 40, 50% drop. When we got the 40% drop, it was about 45%. The 74,000 would be 41. Drops of 50% that have been greater than 50%. I think 53%, if I remember right. I did a video on it a few days ago. I think earlier in the week there or over the weekend. I can't remember, but a few days back I did. I looked at all the bear market. The crashes that kicked off the bear markets, and usually you get a significant drop. Now here I've drawn a parallel channel from the lows over here, and it's not perfect, but again, and from these levels here, if we do get some kind of rebound back up, watching this channel, but channels do expand and they do change. It's likely that we're going to rally back up to the 200 period like we did the last bear market. Again, Bitcoin moved into a free fall and it dropped 52%. And again, look at the cut, and this is what I was talking about in my video a couple videos ago. Again, I warned that, again, still could see something like that where you got the death cross and you still get this bigger drop before you get this big, meaningful rebound back up to where? The black line, the 200 period moving average, just overthrowing Bitcoin's average price. You could see something like that here. And again, we didn't get that until we dropped 52%. So again, you may get some kind of rebound, like I'm saying, this rebound, this rebound, this rebound, these counter trend rebounds before you get a bottom and you get a bigger recovery. Took out the key support. That would mean taking out the 74,000 area. You try to bounce around it, and then you ended up getting a bigger drop. And that's why I'm saying you're going to get likely a 40 to 50% drop on Bitcoin. I've been saying this since the top. I told you I think we've topped. I think you're kicking off the bear market, and if you are, you're going to get something like this. Probably rally up to the 200, already getting the death cross, and the 50 remained below the 200 period. And again, that's another warning sign. But Bitcoin's going to 200 and 250,000. People keep telling me, oh, no, you're wrong. Tom Lee said so, or Michael Saylor's Bush, or Eric Trump says so. We're going down because the institutions, the big players, they're selling. The herd, the retail investors, they're telling us they've been buying. They're selling. At some point, they're going to run it back up so they can sell some more. It'll cause the herd to be lulled into a false sense of security. People are gone in the herd and the moon boys. Still believe by the end of the year we're going to be at 200 and 250,000. They're living in fantasy land. Keep predicting. Tom Lee, he's going to move his 200,000, 250,000 target. I predict he's going to move it into 2026 like he did the last time. He had predicted over here they hit 100 to 168,000 and Bitcoin topped at 69,000, began to go down. By December, as Bitcoin started to crash, he goes, we're going to hit 200,000 into 2022, and he gave himself a whole year. We moved into the first quarter, Bitcoin continued to crash into January and to recover, and then he's still saying 200,000 by the end of 2022. He's going to do that again. I think he's going to move his prediction forward because he's a perma bull. Blindsided by the last top, he was blindsided last bear market, as he was blindsided by this top, just as he's blindsided by this sell-off, because he's a perma bull. But do we get something like this, where we end up some kind of rebound, but then again still continue lower and eventually move up to that 200 period moving average? Back in 2017 and 18, you did something very similar to that as well. Again, you've lost the 200 period moving average and the 50. They got the death cross. You came down and that 200 period was resistance. And then you went lower and that 200 period was resistance. 50 remained below the 200 period moving average. So do we see something like that surrounding the 200 period moving average? Here we broke it and eventually got back above it. Before the death cross, after the death cross, the 200 period was the resistance here in 2017 and 18, the bear market there. 2013, 14 to the 2015 low, same thing. Again, you bounced off the 200, you came down to Bitcoin's average price, but that 200 was resistance, tried to get above it. After the death cross here, the 50 got back above the 200, but the move failed and you dropped back below both the moving averages. And again, tempted after a significant sell-off to rally back to that 200 period moving average and danced around it a couple of times before getting the next leg down. So again, the 200 period, very important in my mind, again, eventually I think we're going to rally back towards it. But as I keep saying, I think we're going to go lower. And the 200 period is a very, very slow moving average. But at some point, you're going to get some kind of rally moving back towards it. That's a black line right here. The 50's just crossed it recently, as we've talked about. Again, I think you'll end up seeing some type of bounce. But again, the risk is I think that we're in crash wave 3. We get a subwave of crash wave 3. And again, you're ultimately moving down to 74,000 or down to get a 50% haircut towards 63,000 or maybe even lower if Bitcoin does what it's done in the past. I'll mock my chart, look at this chart and mock it. This is what Bitcoin's done in the past, picking off the bear market. And then my larger sell-off of 80 to 90%, again, that's what Bitcoin's done in the past.